Hey everybody, welcome to another episode here of our podcast on how outsourcing and AI works for small to medium business. And a lot of times we're interviewing some clients or others that are just a big advocate, because when it comes to the whole world of outsourcing and virtual assistants and AI and so forth, we're beyond top of funnel, right? Everybody knows this stuff exists. It's like, how does this actually work? Anybody that knows me, I'm all about case studies, specific examples. Don't give me the general blah, blah. Give me some specific examples of how that works. And I've got a treat today with Eric Farewell, who he and I have known each other for quite some time, and super excited to have him on. And we're going to be able to touch on that topic, but also from a coaching and from a entrepreneurship kind of growth, building leadership and burnout perspective. Got a very unique angle of the work that he's doing these days. Got some really interesting kind of businesses that'll kind of blow your mind. Some unique elements he's kind of been involved with that we'll kind of dive into. But some of the most meaningful stuff he's doing right now is deeping dive into business owners and their growth and kind of tracing back of where some of those kind of hidden challenges happen that manifest themselves kind of later in life, and doing some deep work. So thanks for joining me, man.
It's really my honor, brother. It's been a long time coming. For those of you guys who don't know Brad well, I think we scheduled this 6 months ago, and now we're finally here. So just know that he's living this abundant, freedom-filled life, and we're all passengers for it. I love that. I like to give you crap for it, but honestly, every time we talk, he's like, "Yeah, I just got back from the Philippines. I spent a day at the beach. It was fantastic." I'm like, "Dude, you're living life. I love it. It's worth honoring. Well done."
Well, there's lots of fighting my children to put their clothes on in the morning, kind of in between all of those things too. But I appreciate it, man. No, same to you. And it's we're all striving to to have that balance, and really integration, as kind of the real word is, as we're all kind of navigating kind of the modern life of a parent, as a business owner, and how do you kind of keep all the wheels inflated to go down the road. We'll dive into quickly to Eric's background, but as always, like if you hear nothing else we have to talk about, I'd like to be able to share a quick tool resource with you kind of right up front that you can get some value out of, whether it's a tool, podcast, something that's not mainstream. I'll always share something and ask my guest. And we have a common ground topic, actually, that Eric and I were chatting about before we started. That'll be a great one for you. So Eric, why don't you open it up and share the cool tool resource for everybody today?
I'm going to share the cool tool resource that Brad's too cheap to buy. That said,
I price on the one I have, but he's about got me sold on it.
Buy once, cry once. I had a buddy of mine who's actually near you in Georgia, and he has had an Uller. He's had all these different cooling mattress pads and all these different things. And I was like, well, this 8 Sleep looks like the Ferrari. He goes, it is. Buy once, cry once. So the 8 Sleep mattress cover, tons of your favorite podcasters are talking about it. This is not an ad. Brad and I are not getting paid. This is just me saying that out of the last 18 months, I spent a lot of money. I spend a lot of money all the time. This is the one thing that I will say was absolutely worth every penny. It's less than $5,000. It's 0% interest. If it's either one of those things, less than $5,000 or 0% interest, and it's interesting, I'm almost always a yes.
And literally, this is no ad. Everybody was always asking me, like, these tools you talk about, Brad, y'all like, I probably should get some kind of affiliate link or something, but literally it's just sharing some cool tool that the guests have. So
yeah, I mean, I'll pass it back to Tim Ferriss. 8sleep.com/Tim gets you, I think, $600 off. I bought this 18 months ago, changed my life. I love it. My sleep scores are through the roof, and especially I'm hitting 40 and I'm almost a month. And I've realized that more than anything else, trying to protect my body and be a good steward is huge, and sleep is massive for that. So highly recommend 8sleep.com.
Right, Tim, we're giving you some love. We're trying to earn you more commission here, Tim.
He needs it. He's been struggling, I've heard, for a while now. So I'm kidding.
That's why he actually kicked off my whole journey on this whole path on the whole outsourcing VA world with the old 4-hour work week. I think it's going on 20 years, I think, since he kind of wrote
2007. That's when I met Tim, was 2007. It's kind of crazy.
Yes, it really is. It's right at that mark.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, advocate. Yeah, because Eric and I were talking about it. So I've got to sleep like at 20 degrees. Like I like to sleep like on an ice cube when I go to bed at night. And my wife obviously is very different. A lot of spouses have those kind of dynamics, and so I've been using a one called Uller that's like a mat that goes in. It's got water that kind of goes through it, and it's been great. Like but it's just the water, and it kind of gets clogged and kind of cleaning it. So I got to where I wasn't using it. So I just sleep on top now with a cooling blanket. But I kept hearing about 8 Sleep. Someone else shared with me, and then Eric kind of brought it up, and yeah, I mean, I can't say enough about
it's like a cult, dude. You meet people who have them, and you're like, oh my God, this is like the worst week ever. We're both at a conference, we're staying in a hotel, and neither of us have our 8 Sleep. This is awful. I never in my life thought I'd like ask my friends, hey, is your wife out of town so I can come sleep in bed with you? And I'm actually almost serious, because like it's that much better sleep at this point that I just can't imagine. I was just at a conference this last week, and I drove home every night. I was like, I'm not sleeping in a hotel. I will go home to sleep on my 8 Sleep.
They got to make it. That'll be next. The travel 8 sleep. I'm sure will be coming down the pike.
Bro, I hope they do. If they do it, I am so in. I don't care if it's 50 grand. I'm in. It's worth it.
Well, yeah, as we all know, it's sleep is critical, and we underestimate the impact a lot of times as we kind of march through life. So everybody check that one out. We'll throw it in the show notes, and we'll see if we can get Tim some more commission from it. But on that front, to the point of taking care of yourself and not being burned out. So I'll let Eric kind of do a quick bio on himself and kind of share a background. We'll have it kind of in the show notes, but it's had some really cool, interesting businesses. We met each other through EO initially as a kind of a theme. A lot of folks have heard this is a commercial for EO as well, right? It just happens. It's the testament. I've been in 15 years now, and just, I contribute so much to my business success and the relationships I've had back to EO Entrepreneurs Organization. So that's where Eric and I intersected initially. And so, yeah, share your background, Eric, and we'll get into it.
Yeah, I'm happy to. And I'll give an overview, like a 60 to 90 second version. But like many entrepreneurs, I've been one my whole life. I was raised at a 5-star restaurant in Country Inn in Central Florida. My parents sold books to homeschoolers. I started working when I was 7, started my first company on this new thing called the internet back in 99. I was 13 years old, and I was selling airplanes, and no one was selling high dollar items online yet. This was a very new thing. This is pre eBay Motors. This was out of this world. I got invited to my first marketing conference when I was 13, started speaking, built a marketing agency, still had the airplane business until I broke my back the first time when I was 17. Continued. I can't even count the number of businesses. I had a client do a background check on me a while ago. And a lot of my clients I'll sit down with, and there's an opportunity where I'll take equity instead of cash, just because, quite frankly, there's not enough cash to justify the time. And so she does this background check, and I said, was I clean? She's like, yeah, you're clean, but how many LLCs do you have? And I was like, I don't know. I pay people to manage them. I have no idea. So lifelong entrepreneur, love it. Met you through EO, as you mentioned. I did 6 years in EO. Absolutely loved the people I met there. It was an incredible journey for me. And to this day, it's the only thing I've ever left that I loved. So very odd to make that departure, but so grateful for the experience and the people like you that stay in my life. I became your client. And then years later, I fast forward, I retired about 4 years ago. 3 years ago, we moved halfway across the country from all of our companies. And now we live in Austin, Texas, and been building aviation and media companies, marketing companies most of my life. And now I'm building companies around humans. How do we heal and become more present with who we truly are outside of our fears? And that's where I stand today.
And talk about just, to get the breadth of depth that we, have with Eric. So like, as far as aviator, right. And the short launch business, and then and share as well, kind of your YouTube kind of stats in terms of how you leveraged YouTube. Cause obviously that's a key element. So especially in industries that are kind of connected. So just kind of touch on each of those real quick, of those businesses, because they're really fascinating and super niche. A lot of people haven't heard of.
Oh, hyper niche. They're the dumbest businesses ever to start. I tell people I've somehow fumbled my way into success in industries you should never start a business in. Aviator is a paramotor business, the fan you put in your back, you run into the sky. I started that business 14 years ago now. And at the time I started it, there were about 5 to 10 competitors across the US. Now there's over 500. At the time, there were about 1,000 clients in the US. Now we've trained over almost 4,000 people to fly these ourselves, plus the militaries of multiple different countries around the world. Tons of government contracts. Lots of work, lots of fun until Doge shut us down. But it was, it was a hyper niche business. And I founded it because I needed it. I was frustrated with the lack of professionalism in the industry. It really should not have made sense to be in such a tiny niche with so few buyers. And yet we turned it into an 8-figure valuation. We've done about $30 million in sales through YouTube marketing alone. That business is still to this day, even though I live halfway across the country. Right now, there are people learning to fly at our shop in Florida that are following the passion that I laid forward. And that passion was just helping people to overcome their fears through flight and step into a different perspective of who they are. And that has kind of become a theme for my whole life, is how do I help myself and others overcome fear, because that's where presence is found. And so Aviator's that one. We have National Stoll, which we bought a few years ago. It's an aircraft racing series for bush planes. That's, again, another media-centric business. We're in front of 102 million people this year, all 35 to 65-year-old white guys who make lots of money. So that's a marketing play, an ad sales play. We have a manufacturing company that builds paramotors. We engineered, built, designed. We have a whole arm that works directly with DARPA and NATIC and the Army and things like that to help develop technologies for future efforts. And it's all been really interesting and exciting. And 7 years ago, I burned the heck out completely. And 4 years ago, finally built the business to the place where I didn't have to be there anymore. And now I get to focus on what really inspires me, because I always thought it was more money, more freedom, more opportunity, more possibility. And about 7 years ago, my brother died, and I woke up and said, another 10 million a year is not going to make me happy. In fact, it'll probably make me more miserable. And I wanted to save my marriage and build a relationship with my kids. And that is my greatest success. I spend every day with a woman I deeply love and who actually wants to be with me, and with 3 kids who are 10, 12, and 14, and just badass, incredible humans who are developing and changing every day. And it's such an inspiration to be in their presence, and not just in their presence, but actually have them want to be in mine. And that to me is real success. I would love to have, I call it yacht money. It's like having an extra billion for an extra yacht always sounds nice, but I don't think I'll ever give up the things that make up my real success to get that. And if I never get yacht money because I decided to actually have a relationship with my kids, and I'm the idiot who every day I have an hour and a half block to connect with my wife, whether that's sex or it's food or it's whatever. Today was a great conversation over a lunch, like that's winning at life. I'm a billionaire in time now. And that to me is worth so much more than anything else.
That's fantastic, man. Well, thanks for sharing that message. A lot of people, and including myself and others, are going to kind of keep those things in mind, right? Blocking the time. And we always, time blocking is something we always want to do, but somehow it gets unblocked, right? Sometimes it's just this one thing or just that other thing, depending on kind of where you are in seasons of life. And sometimes, you can't always stick to the script exactly, right? But
no, there's always seasons. You used a phrase earlier that's one of my least favorite phrases and my favorites to tackle, which is balance. Mm-hmm. How many books have you read on work-life balance in your experience?
Yeah.
Dozens, right? We all do, and yet balance doesn't exist in nature. In fact, every time that there is balance, any equilibrium that's found in nature hates it. In the same way that it hates a vacuum, it constantly will shift because it's not meant to be in balance. You're meant to be in flow. And so when we try to create these super hyper disciplined balances that will work for our lives, our business, our relationships, guess what? They don't. They don't. And every time we try to find that equilibrium of here's where I'm supposed to be, and I'm in all the places all the time, guess what? The universe throws at us giant challenges that knock us off our equilibrium, because that's how we learn. That's how we grow. And without it, what a boring life.
Yeah. Now, human beings are not meant to, actually at church this past Sunday where we go, and and the thing I love about the church we go to is, like, depending where you are denomination wise, or even if you're not kind of a believer and what have you, like it's people can walk away with messages because Andy Stanley is the lead pastor of North Point that kind of was global, but just the intentionality of the messaging and what he was talking about at the end of the day is how much we're always trying to control, and kind of the false needs that we tell ourselves all the time, right? The false needs to be perfect. The false needs to always be in control. The false needs to always be right. We have these false needs that we've created for ourselves, and it just leaves us in a place of no peace, right? Because you're constantly trying to address and fill this false need that is never. It's okay. We were meant to fail, right? That's why in his reference, I'm like God, like he was perfect, right? In all of those things, and by definition, we are not perfect in those things, and to be okay with it, and it's just a part of the journey. Now, repeating them over and over and over again without not making progress or learning from them is a different challenge.
We call that a trauma response.
Yeah. and inadvertently, you seek those, people don't realize, subconsciously, and sabotage and so forth that kind of happens. So,
of course.
Well, on that note, man, let's kind of dive into and as everyone talked about, and everybody knows my background, I think, in terms of most people that have been listening, you kind of see in the show notes, but I've been a 25-year entrepreneur and built a bunch of different companies and in different sectors. And then my most recent is Outsource Access. We grew about 500 people in the Philippines, supporting small to medium businesses. And my passion was very similar, like, Eric, it's at the end of the day, like when I was growing my last company, manufacturing, distributing teeth whitening products of all things all over the world, we had a product disaster happen out of necessity. I had to learn about this whole world. And as we were talking about, actually, Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week was my first intersection with that almost 20 years ago. And, but when I really discovered, the incredible competency and ability, not what the perceptions are, a lot of people, or what my own perceptions were, but once I started living in that world and understanding, just because they're in another country doesn't mean they don't have the competency and ability.
Oh my gosh.
It does mean there's a currency difference, right? In terms of currency strength, and that does create some, different, pricing structure. But yeah, I mean, I found my first staff in the Philippines and just truly changed my world. And I always use the phrase, like, you know, it redefined how I scaled myself and how I scaled my business and scaled my life. It's ended up becoming kind of our tagline. And so now here we are, 85 different industries. And this morning, you know, committed to nothing but small to medium business. I never wanted to be a call center for the Fortune 500, but truly, you know, entrepreneurs that like Eric works with, and just side by side working, you know, with them to help them scale and grow with talented staff out of the Philippines, you know, which a lot of people don't realize that actually exists, but it's crazy, you know, how it can be effective. So
I've had my Outsource Access VA, Jana, in the Philippines with your team since 2018, I think. And watching her grow, watching her become a new human, watching her shift her perspective and everything else. I mean, she took over so many menial tasks, things that were just massive time sucks for my team. And at the time, I was still working 100 hours a week. You know, I was still in it, and witnessing what happens when you assign a VA to a team member and teach them how to actually drop in and find the real nuggets, the pieces that are really important, but make you die inside to get them accomplished. That's where VAs thrive, man. It's like,
I didn't want to pull that exact phrase.
Oh,
we help with the things that make you die inside that you don't want to accomplish.
It's the things that are super important or really valuable and really make a huge impact on the bottom line, and they make you die inside. For me, it's anything that involves a spreadsheet. I don't want to look at it. I don't want to understand. My 12-year-old is way better at spreadsheets than I am. I've built multiple 7- and 8-figure businesses. I have no desire to be that good. But if I have a team in the Philippines, in Colombia, wherever, of deeply skilled technical people who can manage this stuff for me and then give me a one page, cool. I just don't want to see a spreadsheet. So those make me die inside. I'm sure there's things that make other people die inside. That at the end of the day, knowing how to read a great P&L and be able to go into all the details is really important as a founder, unless you can afford to pay someone else to make you smarter and do the things you actually love. And that's what having VAs just makes it so simple. I was telling you before we started recording, it's like every client that I work with, I said, look, if you make $1,000 a month, you should have a VA. Like if your company's making 12 grand a year, that's all you're making. First hire, first action, first move is always hire a VA. And most entrepreneurs I work with are like, well, I don't know what I'm going to have them do. And I just started up a note, and I'm going to curse on your podcast. It's a note that says, shit I don't want to do. And from that, they rank the importance and the happiness, and they just start building a list. And within about 24 hours, there's 30 or 40 things. And I was like, perfect. There's your starting point for your VA. Well, what if they aren't good at building a website? If you ask them nicely and they're interested and they're a positive fit for your team, chances are they like to learn, right? Yeah. Like my last 2 websites, I didn't build them. I don't know how they were built. My VA, who never built a website before, was like, oh, you look like you need a new website. Would you like it? I'm like, yeah, that'd be amazing. She's like, what sites do you like? I'm like, these sites look good. No, the websites she's built, they're not perfect, but I didn't have to do anything. That's a win.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, you know, this 2-question exercise, you know, that we do with people, because at the end of the day, like, you know, and again, this isn't, you know, a commercial for Outsource Access. And I mean, people know me. I mean,
I disagree.
I've helped 4 companies, actually 4 colleagues actually launch their own companies in the Philippines, actually compete with us. Right. Cause I have a very abundance mindset, and I believe very heavily in it. And I just want, you know, I'm a scream from the rooftops kind of person when it comes to new ways I've found of doing things, like 8 sleep. Right. But it's the impact and the change it can make, and particularly in the family unit dynamic, because, you know, our worlds are fully integrated, and being able to have the peace and clarity to focus not on what you need in your business, but within your family life. And that's a big, you know, huge impact it's had, you know, for me in that journey. But it's, regardless if it's an AI solution or a VA solution or what have you, it's first just getting clarity about what are your challenges. And I know that's part of the dialogue you have. And it's like, we have this 2-question exercise that's just, and every time everybody wants to complicate it more. And they're like, Brad, I've had every consultant. We had this, like, you know, $300 million operation in Wisconsin. We were working with CEO. It's like, you just want me to send these 2 questions to my staff. That's it. It's like, I've had every consultant in here and they have 48 pages. I'm like, no, it's just these. And every time, and we've done this with thousands of companies now, and it's literally just take these 2. What are you doing that you don't feel is the best use of your time? And how many hours are you spending on it per month? Right. And a lot of people have talked about that, but that second part is really important, because a lot of people begin that thought process and like, oh, but that doesn't take much time. I won't put that on the list. Oh, that doesn't, no, take the time and put a pencil to it, and you'll be blown away ultimately of like how much time you end up spending on something. And if you're a business owner and you're sending this to your staff, you got to give them psychological safety to tell you those things, right? What are you doing that you don't think is the best use of your time, and how many hours you're spending on it per month? And then secondly, right? What are the things that you think we should be doing that we aren't from where you sit in the organization due to time, money, or knowledge constraints? And it's amazing. We've sent that so many times. And like that one big $300 million operation, like, the staff come back and the owner's always like, Jane, you have 48 items on here and you've been with me for 7 years. Well, you never really asked me, right? And so, as I'm sure you've seen, the interesting byproduct of doing this journey as well is, those are people that are on the cusp of leaving your company. And if you got good employees and you don't let them, and so it's like, Jane's got 48 items on here. Jane may be on the cusp of leaving your company. So regardless of VAs and outsourcing, this lets you figure out what needs to be fixed on the home front. But obviously it creates a whole runway.
You ask this question so much nicer than I do. I ask every client to ask their team, what are they doing every day that's complete waste of their time? What are they doing every day that makes them feel like they're going to die inside? What are they doing every day that they wish they could never, ever see happen ever again? What are they doing every day that they know is taking years off their life? What are they doing? Like, I just pile on because I think each one of those has a different answer, right? There are things like, for me, email. When I've had my first VA, it was all about email. I had 400 emails a day plus coming in. I was overwhelmed. I was exhausted. I was so tired of my own customers, the people who I'm sworn to protect, the people who pay my bills. I was so fed up with answering their questions that I trained my VA on it. And now she does it. And it's fantastic, right? But like, that was my answer. That was what was making me feel like I was dying inside every day. I get into the office 8 o'clock in the morning, 7:30 in the morning, and there's 400 emails to read. It's like, how am I ever going to get anything accomplished on the business to actually grow and scale? No, I can't. I'm too busy being a business owner. Ew. Sorry.
No, and you know what? I may get more aggressive on our language. The die inside may get better responses probably on the.
It's shocking. It's right? Pretty brutal.
It's hitting that you want to hit that visceral feeling, right, of the stuff that isn't the best use of their time, and to be honest about it, because the ones that aren't, right, are sandbagging. And they aren't doing the stuff that's the most valuable. And then the other thing, the things that they think ought to be done, because a lot of times there's people in other departments that have perceptions and great ideas about things that they're just never asked, right? What they think they ought to do. So we got this template we'll share out to everybody, put in the show notes. And we've so this is actually in a completed one of a $20 million fintech company where we did this exact process. And I was actually in the room when the CEO heard all the people responding, and his jaw about hit the ground. He's like, Anna, you spend 20 hours a month doing triage emails and organizing meetings. Like, how much do we pay you? That's an awful use of your time. And she said, yeah, it's not the best use of my time.
Yeah.
And we put we've done like 5 million hours of work now. So we've kind of aggregated like 700 different tasks across marketing, operations, customer service, sales. And people scroll through this and they're like, oh, they can do that. They can do that. So anyway, it's a kind of a fun exercise. And I will take the exact wording that Eric shared there to actually use, because I would encourage that. You'll probably even get more engaged responses.
My thing is, I want a visceral emotional reaction. And when you take words that are outside of the normal boundaries of what people talk about, and you're like, hey, what disgusts you? Disgust is a powerful word.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that anyone listening to this podcast probably has one thing that they do, even if it's changing their kid's diaper, that's disgusting to them. Okay, I'm not saying you should stop changing your kid's diaper, but maybe it's not the best use of your time. Maybe if like I have 3 kids, 10, 12, and 14. My oldest hates washing the dishes. There's something about, like, he'll empty the dishwasher, he'll clean the dogs, he'll pick up dog poop, but washing the dishes is gross to him. Okay, you should know how. But is it the best and wisest use of your time for the rest of your life to wash dishes? Or can you learn how to use your wisdom and your time to hire the right person to wash dishes? Guess what? His 10-year-old sister, heck of a dishwasher, and she's very easily hired right now.
Hey, and as we grow, right, we earn the right to not do certain tasks as we get older. But my children are definitely going to continue cutting their teeth on pressure washing the back of my truck and unloading the dishes. But it's ultimately about, right. It's because look, we all want to wake up and be in our genius zone every day, right? And I know you and I could riff on this. I want to dive into some of your case studies and examples, but it's just, it takes a lot to figure that it's out in life sometimes for folks. And at the end of the day, it's like, regardless, we all want to wake up and our feet hit the ground and do that thing that we love doing every day. And what's my genius zone? And as you and I have talked about, like, that trap is that zone of competence, right? And this is the biggest trap you and I see so many entrepreneurs get caught in. It's the thing that I'm good at and I can do really well, right? So I can crunch spreadsheets and do pretty well and actually enjoy them, but it is by far not my zone of genius and like what adds the most value. So it's getting everybody out of that zone of competence to their zone of genius. And if you can redistribute energy and effort to those right places, at the end of the day, the company's more successful and profitable, and everybody's happier, in the journey.
Well, and the reality is too, so much of that is protective, right? We find the things that we're good at, the world tells us we're good at, and we continue doing them because it makes us feel as if we have value to bring the world. And most of us are still tying our own value to the self-worth that we were given as children, the programming we had between the ages of 0 and 12, 14, 16. Our nervous system was literally connected to our mothers until we were 7. Their heartbeat, their pace, their tempo. So the areas where we didn't get enough love from mom, chances are when we find it from the world and they say, oh my God, Eric, you're the best salesman. You kill it at business. You're making so much. The last thing I ever want to do is stop selling, right? Because then it means that I don't have the value that I'm finally bringing the world, that I didn't receive the love or affirmation from a parent member, right? So if you start to go deeper and deeper down this rabbit hole of what traumas define us today, you might step down as CEO of Aviator. It was the biggest ego death. I gave up my title. I gave up who I am. I gave up all these things. And there's a real cost too. When I'm closing, we're over 80% close rate. That's a $3 million a year cut on overall sales to go from 80% to 60%. That sucks. And it was worth it for me because I needed to be with my wife and my kids. And that was my number one belief of what success was.
Yeah.
For a lot of us, we look at I could never give up sales because then my team would have to get smaller. I could never give up sales because then I'd have to move into a smaller house. I can never give up sales. Well, no, we have to decide what's actually important and make the choice to be disciplined about what we actually believe is valuable. And that's a really hard thing to do for a lot of entrepreneurs. And one thing that I really love about VAs and what you have built with Outsource Access is a scalable system so that when we hire someone to pick up the slack from those who have these gifts that aren't unearthed yet, right? When I asked those questions of my team, the number of things they brought me that were genius that we hadn't been doing for years because they didn't feel as if they had the space to do them. They were overwhelmed with the busy work. Now the busy work is gone. They can actually do things that make a huge impact and are legacy leavers. And that's what I want to be as an entrepreneur and a founder. I want to inspire others to leave their legacy. That's the beauty. That's the special part,
Yeah, no, it's giving yourself permission to go down that path. And it is, it's the reason why, as we know in EO, only 4% of businesses ever go over $1 million, right? Because it's just the classic E-myth, right? It's just, people are just so, and when you talk about just the fight or flight state that a lot of entrepreneurs get in that don't ever get out of that cortisol loop, right? It's just, you're constantly in fight or flight. And it's just, it feels so uncomfortable to be in a place of peace that they'll go create chaos, right? And I've been guilty myself. You don't even realize you're doing it, right? It's like, I needed the endorphin hit, right? Especially in a lot of us all being ADHD and so forth, right? Your brain pursues quick wins and endorphin hits. And so why does the thing you need to be doing get put off, right? Well, if I can go get wins here and satisfy my brain needs, I do an A, B, C, and and D. So yeah. All that, will you dive, Eric, kind of in so as far as some of the case studies and some of the work you're doing right now, and I know you kind of talked about a little bit as far as the framework and some examples you kind of seen with some of the business owners you work with, because a lot of people they don't realize how much is sitting underneath piles and piles of dust, but it's inside of them that drives so much. We've been in rooms where, 40, 50-year-olds, they raise their hand and it goes back to something, at that age. So maybe share some examples of some things and kind of the work that you do. Do you help people kind of come to terms with that have been in denial around it, to then be able to uncover it, to give themselves permission to live in the place that they should be living?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give a little more color too. So like I mentioned before, I retired 4 years ago. About 2 years ago, I was on a friend's podcast just sharing my story, and we wrapped the podcast. He looks at me and says, Eric, can you coach me? It's like, in what? He said, you have 4 7-figure companies and you don't work. Our daughters are best friends. So he knows, I'm always available to hang out. So I started coaching him, and the podcast came out and 7 other people reached out and asked me to coach them. And I fought it. I really was I don't want to be a coach. I'm a doer, not a teacher. And I think that's really a critical element of stepping into elderhood as we start to move from being boy wonders to actually having life experience. And it's still uncomfortable and different for me, but I'm really learning to love that aspect. Yeah. But a lot of what I initially started coaching is stuff that you talk about. It's stuff that you've done forever with Outsource Access. It's this idea of all right, track your time. Is what you're using your time with making you happy? Is it actually important? What's that? So that was stage 1. It's let's get awareness of our time. Let's get awareness of our mission. Let's get awareness of our why. Let's go into our core values. All that stuff was super clean and cerebral and logic based and EOS based and gazelles based. And I thought I was really smart. And it's all stuff I did for me. but I left out the piece that was most important. I left out the piece that really changed my life. And that was 7 years ago after losing my brother and realizing that traditional success was not ever going to fulfill the hole in my heart. It was never going to fix my marriage. It was never going to help my kids actually want to spend time with me. I discovered something that I wish that I'd learned 20 years earlier, 30 years earlier, which was somatic work, learning how to listen to my body, learning meditation and mindfulness and breath work and all these different journeys that give us different tools to better know ourselves.
And define for our listeners real quick, Eric, somatic, like how you define that for those that maybe haven't heard that phrase.
So soma is based on the idea of soma, which is your body. So your body keeps the score is a great book. There's lots of others out there that kind of walk you through the basis, which is there are many things that happen in our lives that we may not have a direct memory of, but our body never forgets, right? And whether that's this life or past lives, and depending on your religious persuasion, I love Taoism for the foundation of the idea that we come back life after life to learn different lessons. So if in one life we were the abuser, in the next life we're the abused, right? It's the opportunity to come back and understand new perspective, which ties into my love for aviation. As we shift our perspective, astronauts call it the overlook effect. We start to understand ourselves completely differently. So that's the work I've been doing the last 7 years. And if you'd had this conversation with me a year ago, as I was beginning this journey, and I was just like, well, I'm about to write my second book, I've got to do all these things, I would have told you that I've been leading entrepreneurs and helping them build freedom, because that's what I thought I should say. Like straight up, like that's marketable, right? I can teach a YPO member how to escape the slavery of their business by building these systems and hiring these people and doing these things and being very logical. And now a year later, I get to say what is actually true, which is a little woo-woo. It's a little weird. It's simply this. I never knew true happiness, true belonging, true self-love throughout my entrepreneurial journey or anywhere in my life until I learned how to get in touch with my body and learn how to be fully present in all moments. This has been probably the worst financial year of my life, one of the hardest emotional years of my life. January, we got news my father-in-law had killed himself. February, we got doged and killed all of our biggest contracts, 7, 8 figure, 9 figure, like huge projects for years of work. April, we got tariffed 46%, had to lay off half the team. And these are businesses I don't work in, but I'm like sitting on the beach in Kauai getting this news. And I'm like, I'm in my happy place and I'm also having to be sad and I'm having to have this range of emotions, which as a young man, I was never taught to have any emotion aside from anger. It's the only one my father said was safe, that was manly. And guess what? Humans have emotions. So the work that I do today is helping people tap into who they truly are, because I had to do it for myself first. And I'm so grateful for that journey. It has been just an absolutely incredible one. And there's always more to learn. And what I love most is I'm married to a woman who challenges me and allows me to see the areas I need to work on.
Yeah.
and to have 3 kids who any area that she doesn't polish enough, that she doesn't see or help me see as an issue, they help me see even more so. So it's a constant working toward deep happiness. So as I said before, like this year has been one of the hardest of my life. And I think this is the happiest I've ever been, the most I've ever felt like I belonged, the most at peace I feel, even with the chaos. And guys, like the level of chaos is kind of obscene. I had a friend walk up to me at a party a few weeks ago. He goes, Eric, like, I don't know what you signed up for in this life, but you've had some bad shit happen. I turned to him, I said, dude, I haven't even posted on social media in 4 months. You don't even know the worst things that have happened this year. I wrote a book in those 4 months, so I literally hadn't written anything for public consumption. And I started sharing with him. He was like, oh my God. I'm like, yeah, but I've learned to be grounded and present and engage and actually process the emotions versus 7 years ago when my brother died. I didn't have any of the tools. So I tried to suppress. I got really, really drunk for a really long time. I love sex. I love all these things that make me feel good. And so instead of actually feeling the hardship of losing my best friend, and, a young man who was 22 with a 3-month-old son, my body I kept repressing it. My body ended up revolting. I'd broken my back twice. And by the time 6 months had passed from his death, I couldn't walk anymore. The pain was through the roof. And I refused to live that way anymore, because I do have 3 awesome kids I want to spend time with and I want to do life with. And I'm now living here. It's like there's always outdoors things to do and things to like enjoy life together with cool people who are actually awesome. And that's my new commitment to myself.
Well, thanks for sharing that, man. It's very vulnerable and transparent as we learn in EO, there's the real kind of magic happens when people can kind of share, because a lot of people aren't willing to talk about those things, and everybody's got the things that are happening kind of underneath, because it's not what norm from a society standpoint. So when you work with people and help them kind of unpack and uncover sort of what are those things, what they're doing. I mean, some of the initial questions you start, but then you kind of end up going back into some of those. And so you end up probably for the first time they're really uncovering like what was that thing that happened. And sometimes like as human beings, like we will subconsciously put so much cover on something to like not have to deal with it, that it takes some real work to like unpack it and uncover it and realize that one event, right, ultimately seeded this thing subconsciously that's driven all of my self-sabotage behavior or addiction behaviors, or whatever they may be that people are kind of navigating.
Absolutely.
So would you get them working on that? So as far as the change that you've seen, so what are some of the steps that people are taking when you see some of the transition you've seen with people that you've kind of worked with? What are the key steps they take, and what do you see the transition?
It hugely depends on the person. We have been really blessed. I've been able to work with some really interesting people, both one-on-one, and I have a group that kind of do the work together, which is cool. And then we get to do life together in person. And I love that, because it's the transformational experiences mixed with trading geniuses. And I know you're a big tester too. It's like Culture Index, Human Design, Gene Keys, Working Genius, Colby. We use all of them, right? And if I have someone who's a high GE in Working Genius, or they're a high WI, like I like to trade their geniuses back and forth. And founders are shockingly willing to help another person's business if they know that that person's going to help them in the exact areas that they suck or they struggle. Yeah. So I love both sides of it. I love the one-on-one is super intimate, and I only have a couple of those at a time, and it's like they're my best friends. I talk to them every day. And then the group, it's more of a everyone is experiencing this together at the same time. And it's just massive, massive shifts, whether it's financial success or relationships improved or whatever it is. I have two favorite testimonials. The first one, my friend Cassie Shea, former client of mine turned business partner, wonderful, wonderful coach and human. She said that in her first 90 days working with me, her income increased 153%, and it didn't even matter because her relationship with herself changed so dramatically. Since she wrote the testimonial, she's engaged. She's massively increased her income, way more than that. And she just has changed everything about the trajectory of her life. The other one is a client from Seattle. And he said that he had a choice. It was do this work with me and grow as a person, or die. And that's a pretty bold statement, but it was my truth too. Like if I didn't start to work on me and I didn't prioritize my health emotionally, physically, spiritually, I don't think I'd be here. And so I'm really grateful, because no matter how successful we get, people still have depression, people still have challenges, people still have overwhelm, people still have loss and grief. And I really, I appreciate that my clients can make more money because of the work we do, and they can have more freedom. But I find even more valuable this idea that, hey, our lives are worth looking at. And if we want to leave a legacy that actually matters, a legacy that is generational, not financial legacy, that should be a great after effect, but a legacy of love, a legacy of real care and impact. It starts with us. We have to take care of ourselves first. It's that oxygen mask first thing. And it really does matter.
Man, those are amazing feedback from individuals that probably had no idea that was going to be on the other side of kind of going down that journey. And that's why I want to bring Eric on. I mean, just being in the front lines of, being EO. I mean, I don't realize in YPO now for 3 years, and aside from whatever organizations, there's tons, but sitting around with a bunch of individuals intentionally, I think I'm going on like, I don't know, 800 hours now of time, every single month for 4 hours with two different groups. So it's 8 hours per month. I mean, I had my YPO group, my EO forum. Yeah. But just sitting down and just all technology off for 4 hours, doing nothing but just unpacking your personal, family, and business. I mean, they're business organizations, but as we've all seen, the vast majority of the conversations end up gravitating, the last 15 years. I mean, I've seen people's, children grow up, and with me having younger ones, I've gotten some of the most incredible insights on parenthood and spouse and so forth. But there's a lot of raw things going on with people that you don't realize a lot of times. And the muscle it builds to be able to share those things and to be self-aware. I mean, I feel like every month I'm getting pounded with self-awareness in a way that, I wouldn't have, kind of otherwise. So That's awesome to see the work that you're doing. And there's a lot more to be done. And with all the craziness going on in technology and AI and the amount of anxiety that's consuming human beings, consuming the amount of more stuff than we were ever built or created to consume, we're going to continue to have to lean in and be intentional more than ever of knowing who we are, taking care of our bodies and not only for ourselves, but as you noted, for our families. And parenting is more insanely important, which I talked about is so important. Knowing how to build a true one-on-one relationship with your child. It's not just being present. And there's a lot of families I see that spend time together, right? And that's kind of the box they checked is like, oh, we spent time together going on a trip, or we spent time together going to dinner, right? That's very different than building a one-on-one relationship in depth. And so I've been focusing so much, and Cindy and I try to alternate, because we all know you spend that one-on-one time with your child. It's like a whole different planet than when you're all together, which there's a place and time for that, but you got to go deep. Because it's the place that actually in EO, or when I was speaking for EO Chicago, she told me, this was when my daughter was just under 1 year old. She had a daughter that she had just dropped off at the Air Force Academy.
Wow.
And she said, something I started doing at a young age is I would get down beside my daughter, beside her bed at night, get lower than her intentionally. So it felt like a subordinate, and just create an open space. Just, hey, what's on your mind, right? How are you feeling? And at a super young age, it started off as like, and I do it with my daughter after that. And after she told me that, I immediately started doing it with mine. And I started off of like, well, she would ask me like how things are made, right? She just randomly pick out something in the room for me to be able to kind of try and remember my 7th grade science of like how the chandelier was made or what have you. But what it did was create that open space of connection that I still do to this day. And she had told me that at that dinner because she had just dropped her daughter off at Air Force Academy, who asked her, say, Mom, could we still have our connection time? So dropped down, got beside her. And just as parents, a lot of times it feels like we're, preaching or kind of telling them what to do or how to behave and what have you. And there's still a place for that. There's discipline and direction we got to provide, but being able to create that open space and connect with our kids, and certainly don't do it every time. But you never know the little things that they'll tell you, and so.
And the thing is too, and I'll tack on that. There's a book called The Family Board Meeting, which I highly recommend. Quick read. My wife and I do this with our kids every quarter. It's magic. That one-on-one time is magic. And something you tapped on, which is, the importance of having that connection time with our kids, with our spouse, with our business partners, with whoever, all of that, the world tells us. What I wish the world had told me 25, 30 years ago that I had to learn over the last 7 was that the same level of importance is my relationship with me. The same level of importance is taking the time to really be present with what I want, what struggles I'm in, what like actually being engaged versus suppressing and paying attention to the things that were on fire. Because there's always something on fire. There's always a need to put a fire out. And the reality is the more disciplined we get in loving ourselves, we become a cup that runneth over for everyone else. And that's what I want to be. And that's the life I'm trying to build for myself, my clients, my family. And it's really special. And a lot of that I get to thank you and, the fact that I mean, I've had VAs in the Philippines since 2000 and I have to math here. Hang on, 2008. But there's so many things like that. You reinvigorated. I hadn't had a Filipino VA in years before I met you. And I was like, oh, we had 35 at one time. It was great. We had an office, and now I don't have to have the infrastructure. I don't have to pay for the office. I don't have to have an office manager. I can just work with you. So there's so many things like this that are just great force multipliers to really get back to who we're meant to be versus trying to strive to be something we think we're supposed to be.
Yeah. And it's not, any one thing, right? It's just kind of building that ecosystem around you of the right support systems and processes and constantly leaning into it. And, to your point, it's like, Tim Ferriss on one of his recent videos, as far as like, how does he deal with his ADHD and his chasing squirrels all the time. Right. Yeah. And it's every morning, it's just before anything happens, I have a meeting with myself, right? And just journal and just really think about, and it's so hard, right? It's just to lean over and grab our phones, which everybody does these days, and immediately jump back into content and get that endorphin hit and connect, right? But having the discipline of restraint, right? Versus engagement. So
100%, man.
Well, man, it's been fantastic. As always, going down this journey, and this is going to be a super impactful episode for everyone that kind of takes a listen. And so how can everybody kind of, they want to reach out and kind of stay in touch or follow your content?
Yeah, I think I'm the only Eric Farewell in the world. It's EricFarewell. I have
in the
a new
whole
book
world.
in the
only
whole
Eric
world.
Fairwell.
I haven't found another one, so I feel pretty good about that.
You're the first people to Google?
EricFairwell.com, Eric Fairwell on LinkedIn. I do have one book out, another one coming out this coming year, which I'm really excited about. This has been a labor of love and lots of tears. And you know, I would love to come and speak more. So if anyone in your audience is organizing, or they're EO members, YPO members, I love to speak. I hadn't done it for years. I just fallen back into it the last year or so, and it's been really inspirational to refine my story to a place that can really serve more people. And that's the chapter of my life that I'm in now. So I'm excited about it.
That's awesome, man. Let's sharing that message, and I'll pop up here Eric's website. Eric Fairwell, look at you.
Yep.
Your daughter there. Yeah, fantastic. Hearing kind of his background and story, and yeah, when it comes to speaking and engaging, you know, encourage anybody as a part of a group or a mastermind, you know, whether it's large groups or small groups, especially even small groups too, it can be kind of an intimate, you know, kind of connection opportunity. So yeah. We'll make sure to put all in the show notes. And as I shared earlier, we'll shoot over, you'll have in the show notes, but if you want to shoot an email to tools, TOOLS, tools@outsourceaccess.com. And just put Eric Fairwell, because there's only one in the subject line. So we know where it came from. We'll shoot you a bunch of resources and tools. We'll send you that 2-question exercise that I encourage you to do for yourself, for your business, whether you do outsourcing or AI or anything. As I shared, it is an amazing exercise that kind of touches on some of the things that Eric says, and we may change it to more some aggressive language by the time you request that, get a hold of it, the Eric Fairwell version of
and I will say
size and what makes you want to throw up all over the place every day that you do.
I want to interrupt you really quickly, just because I have been a subscriber of your newsletter for years. I get hundreds of emails. It's one of the only newsletters I still read. Brad goes all out. Every week is just fire. Highly recommend his tools newsletter. Take the time, go subscribe. It's well worth your time.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, it's people always said I always look at me as the tool guy. And so it's and I encourage anybody that's listening to, by the way, just one final element is if you're ever trying to create, because a lot of people want to create nurture emails for their followers, right? For their business. And a lot of times it's like this long newsletter with tons of stuff that people aren't ever going to read. And they start looking at it, it's like, that's too much. I'm going to and they just unsubscribe, right? And it's all about bite size and high value. And so to the point of kicking off this, this episode, right? And so I have my team just research and find just cool tools that people haven't ever heard of before. And so once a week, so whenever we engage people and they're looking at getting a VA, possibly go to outsourceaccess.com, they can opt into content on playbooks and guides and so forth. But at the end of it, if they've, chosen they want to engage or not, right? We offer, say, hey, once a week, would you just like to get a cool tool that maybe you've never heard of before? And it's crazy. We still have like a 90% retention rate on this thing. And so we built out like a year and a half's worth in our nurture in our HubSpot. And so people start just once a week, right? And I can tell you, I've gotten so many great feedback. People, I had no idea. But to the point of in life and business, right? If you earn the right to stay on people's channels, and encourage everyone here, whether it's podcast content or it's educational, if you're adding value and you can earn the right to stay on people's nurture wheel and their feeds, their email, their content, there will be a life and business event, right? Where they're going to need, maybe what you have and can provide.
Absolutely.
If you've earned the right to stay top of mind. And so many times I'll get replies back just to that addictive tool email. I haven't talked to these people in 3 years. And all of a sudden, like I earned the right to stay top of mind by adding value to them. And so thanks for sharing that. So yeah, we'll share out a link. People want to subscribe. So
awesome, man.
All right, man. Well, we'll get back to our kiddos and that blocked off time. And thanks for some great reminders for me as well on some of the key principles you shared. And look forward to continuing to see your journey ahead, man.
Likewise, brother. Thanks for having me. Catch up soon.
Absolutely. Take care.
Cheers, buddy.